Welcome to the Utilization of Money podcast with Todd Levine from Levine Financial Group. In this podcast, we teach our clients how to own their personal economy. Join us on this journey where we build upon your greatest asset as Todd draws from his years of expertise, solutions, strategies, and expert guest stories to help you understand how money works.
Hello and welcome to Utilization of Money with Todd Levine from Levine Financial Group. Good morning, Todd. How are you?
Good morning.
I am so excited. You know how much I love the new year. And as this podcast is being produced in January, this is the beginning of 2020. And I know our topic today kind of revolves around resolutions a little bit. And I know that sometimes that can be a little cheesy, it's New Year's resolutions and all that, but I think everybody in their mind, at least I do, we think about this kind of stuff. Okay, what changes do I want to make this year? So I love this topic. I'm excited. What are we going to be talking about as far as resolutions today?
Well, I figured we would talk about, we created what we felt were good resolutions and good topics for people to focus on in regards to their finances heading into 2020. And, so we created the five, which were, the first one was organize the junk drawer. And we'll go into that into detail and access. And do you want us to start there?
Oh yeah, we can start wherever. It was funny because you said organize the junk drawer as though you have one. I have probably about five. I have multiple drawers in my house that are considered junk drawers right now. So that's a good resolution. I'm writing it down as we speak.
Yeah, organize the junk drawer. And I think I could probably speak for everyone about this because I think everybody has one. And I think what happens is what I know what happens is that during the year, a lot of stuff happens. You start to compile, documents such as declaration pages on your property and casualty insurance policies that might renew at different times of the year. And you take them and you shove them in the drawer. Your umbrella policies, you get annual statements on your life insurance policies and your investment accounts and taxes. So depending on what type of structure you have on how you pay your taxes, you might be a business owner and you might be paying quarterly estimated payments. So you might be getting regular updates from your accountant and reminders, and those are going in the junk drawer. Open enrollment paperwork, and beneficiary designation paperwork, and from the institutions that the annual, you should look at this. So all these things are being compiled in this drawer, and you're not really realizing it until you actually need something.
Yeah.
And then it becomes like it is in my house, where it's, well, have you seen this? And we've seen this, and I think it was over here, and I think it was over here. And it becomes stressful. And, and I don't think a lot of people, and I know a lot of people can resonate with this because it doesn't matter until you actually need it for a reason. And then all of a sudden it's like, it becomes like chaos trying to organize and trying to find this information.
Yeah. Todd, can I confess to you right now?
Sure.
So whoever made drawers, it sounds silly to say that, but whoever made drawers is a wonderful invention. I have, like I said, I've got multiple junk drawers. Most of them are in my garage. But my wife and I have this deal, and it's not a good deal. She refuses to use the key drawer, which is, where we put our car keys and things, So that's the question I'm always like, hey, have you seen the car keys? Where could the car keys be? Because we have a drawer for keys and they're not in there. And but she's constantly after me, hey, did you put those receipts? And specifically, you talked about receipts and some things. So medication receipts, because we got like a Flex account, I think is what it is through my wife's work. Yes. You've got to turn in receipts and stuff. So, for prescriptions and things like that. Did you put the receipts in the receipt drawer? Because she has a receipt drawer in her desk. It's a catch-all for all sorts of receipts, but she knows what's supposed to be in there. I have no idea. So it's pretty much like a battle, between the two of us. I always forget to put the receipts in the receipt drawer, and she never puts the keys in the key drawer.
Exactly. And it's funny that you talked about receipts. I just had this conversation in my house the other day because my daughter's going for a small procedure, and during the year you're meeting your deductible and everything on your health insurance. And so it was just literally just a conversation where my wife was telling me about what our outlay was for this procedure for my daughter. And I kind of chuckled and I'm like, I could have sworn we hit that deductible. And then it really went back to, okay, so let's, compile the receipts and see what we really have paid, because something doesn't seem right. And the interesting thing is that obviously I'm in this business. I'm actually out there talking to my clients about organizing this junk drawer and putting them in the best position possible to be able to make the strongest decision no matter what time of year. And really, it's hard to do that when you're unorganized. So we have we've talked about this in previous podcasts. We have the living balance sheet. And the living balance sheet is something that all of our clients utilize, and I utilize for myself. So in this case scenario, I said, it's okay. I said, so we upload everything into the secured vault for, for health insurance reasons, receipts, taxes, any statements that are coming in. So they're all secured in these separate PDF files. And sure enough, I just logged right into my living balance sheet website, clicked on receipts, and boom, it was right there.
Awesome.
And that to me told the story on why we do what we do, even though it was as simple as trying to figure out if we met our deductible or not, and being able to verify it really quickly without causing a lot of stress and trying to find all of these receipts that could be anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's just it, because you just don't know, right? I'm setting receipts places they shouldn't be set, so then we have to scramble to figure out where everything is. The amount of stress that you save yourself would be worth every penny of whatever you paid for anything that would help just reduce that stress and be able to say, where are the receipts, honey? And I would be able to say, well, here they are. And boom, then we get done and we move on with our day and everything's organized. And oh man, that would be a beautiful thing. That would be great.
Exactly. So not everybody who's listening to this podcast has access to the living balance sheet, but they can certainly start by really opening up that junk drawer and starting to organize and creating a system for yourself, whether it be via Excel spreadsheet or maybe trying to find some sort of system that can help you organize all of these items in the junk drawer. Obviously, a lot of our clients have the benefit of utilizing this tool to where they can actually organize everything in that junk drawer within that secured vault inside the living balance sheet. But for whoever doesn't have it, there's certainly ways that you can do it. And I recommend, although tedious and becomes, you start as you're starting to open up this drawer, you start to be like, do I need this? Do I not? Is this something I could shred and or not? But I'll tell you what, it's very, to organize, it's great. I always feel like you could focus so much better. So once you're done and everything's organized, it really gives you the opportunity to start focusing on other areas of your financial plan, which we're going to talk about today in the other couple, in the 4 other resolutions.
All right. What's the next one?
So the next one is assess savings goals. So we've gone into this in prior podcasts in a lot of detail. The one podcast we had was how to become a world-class saver. And so I recommend anybody who's listening to to our podcast series for the first times to certainly go back and listen to this. But this really just piggybacks off of that idea. And, I think becoming a world-class saver is something that to where you need a lot of discipline and you need a structure. So I really think that going into the new year, it should be everyone's goal to save a little bit more. I'm not giving you a specific recommendation on where to save this money. I'm just saying overall savings objective, right? So to be optimal and to become a world-class saver, depending on what your income range is it could be anywhere from 10 to 15%, and then 15 to 20, and then higher. So assessing these goals and really making an effort to say, hey, listen, I'm going to make a strong effort to increase my savings goals by this to work towards becoming a world-class saver and getting and being able to recapture a lot of that cash flow that is potentially being lost. Now, as we work through this podcast, you're going to see that there's some areas that are also going to have to be addressed that are absorbing people's ability to actually go ahead and save more. But just, I think, sitting down and saying, hey, we want to save more. How can we save more? And how can we get ourselves to here is the first step.
Yes.
And, so I think that everybody, they set goals for themselves. I like to say, a resolution, one of my favorite ones is, the health resolution, and everybody says, well, that's it. 2020 is here. This is going to be the year that I'm going to get healthy. And this is the year that I'm going to join the gym right away. And it's interesting that you see in January, February, everybody is, the gym is packed. It's like you show up on January 2nd and you're like, where did all these people come from? You can't even find parking.
Yeah.
And then by March, it's right back to where it was again.
That's right. You get front row parking.
Exactly.
Pretty
So
much no problem.
Exactly. So it's really funny, but I think when you talk about savings, it's identifying it, but then really creating the discipline and the structure. And I think that's where you can kind of go back and listen to our How to Become a World-Class Saver and really learn how to become a good saver, and some of the techniques that we've described in that podcast on how you can create that discipline around it. But I think first is just really sitting down and saying, hey, this year we have to save more, and we have to save more for all of these reasons. And this is how we're going to go about doing it.
Yes. And as a coach and as a consultant for a number of years, I've worked with people on goals. I love helping people to set goals so that they can meet and achieve those goals. And so everybody listening to this podcast, yes, go back and listen to the podcast that Todd did on becoming an amazing saver. Really, it's great content. But as you sit down this new year and you look at what your savings rate is now, Todd, I believe you said, optimal is between 10 and 15%. Let's say you're sitting down and you see that you're saving about 5%. Don't get discouraged. Make a goal to save 6%. Maybe if you can stretch it, and after looking at some of these other things that Todd's going to talk about, maybe you stretch that to 7%. But let 2020 be that year that you start that process. So 2020, you save 6%. 2021, you're saving 7%. You'll get to that goal. It doesn't have to alter your lifestyle dramatically to a point where you're just miserable or you're stressed out about it. Take one step at a time. If you can do 2 or 3% increase, awesome, do it. But and Todd would agree, I believe, with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
It's like driving to California. You're not gonna. You're not looking at, okay, the final destination. You're looking at, okay, well, I just drove 2 miles. Now I'm going to drive another 10 miles. Now I'm going to drive another 50 miles. Right.
That's right.
And the sort of same thing applies to goals, is focusing on them every single day, and more so on a quarterly basis than really just an annual basis, but setting that measure. Like you have to have a gauge on how, on some sort of jump in that particular area. So whether it's a 1% or 2%, you're still making that effort. And but the action steps behind it and the everyday focus and the quarterly focus is very important.
Yeah. And I know you said these other 3 resolutions will actually help people get to a better savings goal. So let's move on to those. What's the next resolution?
Absolutely. So obviously this going from savings down, when you start to identify the area, the savings goal that you want to increase, I think most people are going to be like, well, how do I do that? Because my lifestyle is this. And so I need to figure out a way on how I can restructure things to actually save more. And the first area in doing this is really creating a budget.
Okay.
I guess the question that everyone really needs to ask themselves is, have I been budgeting at all? Or do we just fly by the seat of our pants and let our lifestyle just kind of dictate the terms, and we just save the crumbs, as discussed in our prior podcast about saving the crumbs? So I think the importance of creating a budget is like at the top of the list. And I think that as soon as you discover a savings objective, or increasing the idea of increasing your savings objective, then you have to figure out how. And the next step obviously is going through a budget and really creating a monthly expense sheet and start to identify some of the areas inside that monthly expense sheet to where you can possibly cut or, redefine, I guess you can say. Really have to stick to that. So a lot of people don't want to readjust their lifestyle, but there are some things that you can do that can certainly trim some of the fat during the month on some of the areas, on some of the things that you're spending to where won't really affect your lifestyle, right? You can review all of your services, such as your phone and cell phone services, your cable services, your electric bills and gas bills, and start to identify where this money's going and what the bills look like on a monthly basis and how potentially you could trim that down a little bit. How many times a month are you going out to dinner? What are some of the items what are some of the things that you're spending money on the children? And I think this is an interesting one because we all love our kids, and I hear this a lot. Well, my daughter loves dance, and my son loves karate, and my son loves this, and my daughter loves, and I certainly don't want the kids to be deprived, but I certainly think that based on what you earn and based on what your financial situation looks like should dictate how much in each particular area. So I think it's important to evaluate this and to see that, hey, listen, if you can't afford to do something, then maybe you shouldn't. And so I think looking at this and just identifying a budget on a monthly basis, going through all these different areas and really making a mindful decision on how much money you're okay allocating towards each area to sustain that lifestyle you're used to, but then also giving you the ability to free up some additional cash flow that can be saved towards your additional savings goals that we just talked about a minute ago.
Yep, absolutely. And for those that are listening, if you don't know Todd, first thing I got to tell you, this guy does not judge whatsoever when it comes to talking with his clients and what they're budgeting and what they're doing. But the beauty is he and I have had multiple conversations about this with the other podcasts, also off the air. One of the things is that we both know, and we've discussed this, is that we just, as human beings, we don't know what's in our budget and what's not in our budget a lot of times. And it's going to be a little bit painful at first to really sit down and really look at all those statements, all the bank statements, all the transactions, but it's so worth it because we can say, this is what my mortgage is, my car payment, insurance, cell phones, all these different things. Well, this is what my monthly expenditures are. This is how much I make per month. I should have an extra $2,000 a month, but at the end of the month, you don't. So looking at where all that extra money is going, it's very, very eye-opening. And I know that, Todd, you've done that with people before. And again, it's not a judgment issue. It's of, okay, what is your long-term goal? What is your short-term goal? If you want your kids to be in dance and karate, awesome. Let's make sure that there's money in that budget for that. So we need to look at it personally, getting really personal now. I have an ice cream budget, Todd, because I love ice cream. It's not a true budget, but I know that I want to make sure that I've got something in the freezer. I also have grandkids who happen to like ice cream every once in a while. So I like to have those things. Papa's got ice cream in the freezer. That's a normal thing in my house that I want to be able to maintain. It's not much per month, but I know that some of my extra money is going to go towards some treats like that. And I think it's so important for somebody to sit down and do this, hardcore one time. How do you tell people to approach that?
Well, I think the best way to approach it, as you were talking, I was thinking about one of my clients who's so disciplined that I think a lot of people can learn. A lot of people can learn a lot from them. Is that so? Just to give you an idea, this client is retired, and I don't want to necessarily say that he lives they live in a budget because they have money, they have plenty of money. But they're also extremely aware that their lifestyle can't be too great or else their money won't last. Okay? Simple math. And so we've gone through this process with them to where we've helped them create this budget. And my office, we've worked with them to really identify what it is that they need on a monthly basis, and what is it that they want on a monthly basis, and what are the things that they're going to want to do during each year. It means travel and whatever else is. If there's, I know this year there's a wedding and they have a grandchild on the way, and there's other different things. So we take this all into consideration. And they take all this into consideration. And at the beginning of the year, or at the end of the year, we're actually already having the conversation, is they figure out how much money they're going to need or want for the following year. That's it. So based on the whole conversation, the whole budgeting conversation, everything is that they want to do based, looking at this really comprehensively around their whole financial plan and their assets and everything, they send me an email or call me and say, Todd, this is the number. That's it.
Nice.
And so now if there's ever a year where they need a little bit more, that's okay. But I think the initial approach is around this type of budgeting. So they're in retirement. So that's kind of how everybody should operate, right? You should have your ice cream.
Thank you.
And people and people should be able to put their kids and really put their kids in karate and some of the extra activities that they want. I just think it's being mindful about the cash flow, their overall plan, what it is they're trying to do, all the different things that can actually happen, and then really be able to make a decision on this is what we're going to do and this is what we're not going to do, because we're not going to subject ourselves to the risk of putting ourselves in a bad financial situation because we do not have a plan around how we're going to budget ourselves on a monthly and annual basis. So that's really our approach. And, it's really open-ended with our clients. I don't like to sit there and tell them you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. I think the conversation is really just like we're having right now. It's you're sitting in my office and we're having these conversations because there's so many different things that have to happen over these next 20 and 30 years. So we have to be mindful about all these decisions.
Absolutely.
And how we're spending our money on a monthly basis. So like you said, tough decisions will need to be made. And sometimes that extra vacation or those extra 5 dinners should not happen or won't happen.
Yep.
But that's okay. They're not happening or they won't happen because of this.
Yep.
And they make the decision. But I think and this is why I love this, because people are going to sit down and are like, all right, we have to budget. Well, budgeting is one thing, but really making the effort to start looking at this and creating that discipline around it is most important, like it is the other resolutions that we've talked about up to this point.
Yeah. So we're getting organized. We're assessing our savings goals. We're creating that budget. What's the next thing we're doing?
Okay. Evaluate debt.
Oh boy. A fun one.
Everybody can relate to this, I think.
Oh yeah.
Most people can relate to this. During the year, people are not saving enough, not budgeting properly, but continuing to live their lifestyle the same way. And by doing that, what do you think happens? They're basically utilizing the debt to fund the lifestyle. See it all the time. You want something, you don't have the money for it. What do? You charge it.
Yeah.
And this becomes a problem because over a long period of time, this creates a lot of lost opportunity costs. So if you're constantly chasing your tail and carrying debt, let's factor in the lost opportunity costs on that money that can actually be saved. So if you're paying $5,000 or $6,000 in minimum payments during the year, if you tack on a 4 or 5% rate of return over a 30 and 40 year period, what does that actually come out to? Comes out to a lot of money.
A lot, yeah.
People aren't looking at it that way. They're more so looking at it, from a lifestyle scenario, and they're not realizing that what the impact really is going to be long term. So when you fast forward to retirement ages or as you start to approach retirement age, people start to wonder, where did all my money go? Where do we go wrong? And there's probably a lot of areas, right? There's probably a lot of things, a lot of topics to that conversation.
Yeah.
But I think one of the key areas to this is debt. And I think that's the one constant that you'll probably see in everybody is that everyone always has a new car, new clothes. I mean, going on vacations, it's endless. And the impact long-term can potentially be catastrophic. So evaluating debt is important, and also being able to decipher the good debt versus the not so good debt. And I actually call it the toxic debt, which is that high interest rate credit card debt. There is some good debt that could be on your balance sheet, some mortgages or credit lines that are actually locked in low interest rates over a period of time and is creating some deductible interest depending on your situation.
Mm-hmm.
Some student loan debt, if in fact you're not getting phased out of that deduction, can potentially be okay because you're getting some deductions and you're locked in at a low rate. The challenge is the lack of budgeting that's leading to clients utilizing toxic debt and credit card debt at high interest rates to fund their lifestyle. So it becomes a real big problem because they might be putting money into a 401k that's up 15% this year, let's just say, but they're paying 28% on credit card debt. Yeah. So they don't realize the impact and the lost opportunity costs on all this money. So they're actually going backwards. And so it's important in this section is that I think, or I know, that debt should be evaluated and ideas on how to restructure debt, whether it be consolidating it to a fixed rate over a period of time. So you're minimizing your lost opportunity cost over a long period of time, or maybe it's being mindful about taking advantage of the low interest rate environment that we're in and moving potentially some of that debt over to 0% debt. So you can actually, on the payments that you're making towards the debt, actually start to move and wind the debt down.
Yeah.
All right. And going to that is the importance of, credit score monitoring, watching your credit, because it's hard to, what some of the issues that we see are clients, they're making their minimum payments every month. The debt's not going anywhere but up because the interest rates are so high. But then as soon as we make the recommendation to maybe consolidate it or then move it over to a 0% offer type of scenario to really stop the bleeding, then we can't do it because their credit score is too low because their debt to income ratio is too high.
Got it. Yeah.
So as you can see here is the budgeting is so crucial because it's really, this is what's happening. People are not budgeting, and then they're still continuing to live their lifestyle and they're financing that lifestyle through toxic debt, and all of these things are happening inside. So it becomes a challenge. So I love the idea of having our clients at this time of year look at their debt, look at alternative options, really understand what their credit score is, understand the low interest rate environment and their options that would be available to them to actually consolidate this debt and protect against that lost opportunity cost, and then give them the ability to redirect some of that additional savings towards the savings goals.
Fantastic. All right. What is our fifth and final resolution?
Well, the fifth and final is seek out a financial professional. I think you knew I was probably going to say that.
I figured
right?
that. Yeah. But it's wise advice, period.
Yeah. I mean, as I work through these resolutions, once again, and this is a common theme in our podcast, it's very, very hard to do by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's with myself or another financial professional, it is extremely important to be able to sit down with somebody to get some accountability, to create a disciplined approach around addressing these particular areas, And also to really just get new, unique ideas and strategies presented to you in regards to, okay, so once we look at these particular areas that we want to focus on in 2020, well, how do we coordinate them? How do we then, once we make these moves, how do we coordinate them, and how do we utilize these positives to create a really, really nice, strong, flexible financial plan for ourselves, to where we're not going to continue to find ourselves in this position. We're only going to be growing and moving in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And thing is, who's going to start building a house by themselves with just grabbing some 2x4s and hammers? You got to get professionals involved that can give you a picture of what that's going to look like at the end. You have an idea of what you want. They can help you structure it so it stands the test of time, right? I mean, that's what we want. And your financial house is no different. Your financial future is no different. Seeking out a professional is probably the best thing on this list. That's not a commercial for Todd. That's just straight, honest truth. I mean, you said the word accountability, Todd. I think that's one of the most powerful pieces in here. It's overwhelming to try to do this by yourself. So get some help. And then you have accountability to, hey, how are we doing? And you guys can walk down this path together. That's fantastic.
Of course. The coaching and having an advisor, a financial advisor, is so crucial to that. I think that accountability and discipline. It's funny because in my life, I have a lot of coaches. I have a life coach. I have a business coach. I have a health coach. I have a trainer, and what's funny is this is a true story. A year ago, I was sitting down with my life coach, and we were having a similar conversation about resolutions and goals for the upcoming year. And I said, I want to get in shape. I want to get a trainer, and I'm going to create that discipline around my health. And it was interesting because my coach did this. He took the phone and he handed me the phone, and he said, okay, here you go. Where's your gym? Where's it located? What's the phone number? Let's call right now, and let's get you an appointment to get a trainer.
Yep.
So at that point in time, I was put to the test, right? So I'm sitting here, I'm like saying, well, instead of just saying a resolution or saying something, I was like, well, I have to take action. Yeah. I actually have to take action. Sure enough, I did. And it's been 13 months, 14 months that I've been with my trainer, and it's part of my life now. And so the same thing applies. And that's why, so we look at these resolutions, and that's why a lot of resolutions just simply don't work. Because people talk about them, but they don't take action, and they don't create the discipline and have the accountability built around it. So identifying, and that's why seeking out a financial professional is so important, because they're going to keep you accountable. They're going to create the discipline. They're going to create the plan, and they're going to be side by side with you the whole step of the way to make sure that you're not falling off and going back to those old habits. Because year after year after year, if we continue to find ourselves back in this situation, having the same resolutions for the following, eventually you run out of time, Eric.
Yeah,
you run
true.
out of time. And once you run out of time, there's really nothing else you can do. So when you're in your prime years of wealth accumulation, it's so vital to be able to take action and move in the right direction, because once you start getting a little bit older and you don't have the same capacity to earn and or save, then it just becomes a really taxing scenario, to where you're going to probably have to give up something that you really want in life to just get by. And that's not what we want. And that's why I think that, built around, that's why I love the idea of doing this podcast right before the end of the year, but more so finishing off with the idea of, listen, we love it. We want to do it, but we need to take action. We need accountability. We need discipline. So let's go.
Absolutely. And speaking about running out of time, we are out of time. And speaking of accountability and finding somebody, Todd, if they want to reach out to you and have this conversation, say, hey, let's take a look at it. Let's see what changes we can make for 2020. How do they get a hold of you?
Sure. So our office phone number is 732-526-2922. And if anybody doesn't know this, we are located in Colts Neck, New Jersey. It's in Monmouth County. If you just want to reach out to my office, it's office@levinefinancial.net. And we'd love to meet you and have a conversation if you feel we could be a right fit.
Absolutely. Great stuff, Todd. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Eric.
You bet. And thank you all for listening to the Utilization of Money podcast with Todd Levine. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Todd comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at Levine Financial Group, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Utilization of Money podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available.
Todd Levine, registered representative and financial advisor of Park Avenue Securities, LLC, PAS. Security products and advisory services offered through PAS, member FINRA SIPC. Financial representative of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian, New York, New York. PAS is an indirect, wholly owned subsidiary of Guardian. Levine Financial Group is not an affiliate or subsidiary of PAS or Guardian. Guardian, its subsidiaries, agents, and employees do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. Consult your tax, legal, or accounting professional regarding your individual situation. 2020-92544, expiration 1 of 22.